It's one of the greatest times of the year. The NFL draft is right here. Cue the draft chime. The boos pointed at Washington and Jefferson alum and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, the draftee celebration, and a whole lot more. We are finally in April, just one day away from the draft. Hello and welcome into Plead Your Cases live 1 hour draft special. I'm Riley Holsinger, and I'll be joined by a ton of different faces throughout the night to break down not only the NFL draft, but also the NBA, the NHL, and the MLB drafts. We have a great show lined up for you, so don't go anywhere because it is time for Plead Your Case. For the first segment here in the special, I will be joined alongside by Austin Bechtold, the doctor, Caleb Yager, and Spencer Ferteri. And guys, this is probably one of the most mysterious drafts in recent memory, just because there's not a lot of clarity, at least with the first couple picks last year. We had 1, 2, and 3, all quarterbacks. Probably won't see that this year, but this year there are definitely some big question marks with some quarterbacks, whether if it's Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, or if it's Malik Willis. And starting out here, Spencer, I'm going to ask you, who do you think is going to be the first quarterback off the board and where?
Well, no, Riley, I know most people's favorites are Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis, but I'm actually going to change up on those two. I have Desmond Ridder going the first off the board, and I have him going to Carolina. He's had a great 4 years at Cincinnati, and Pickett had this last year. He did well. They got him to the playoffs. He didn't play, but I just think overall Desmond Ridder's got that 4-year experience. He's played all 4 years well. He had 10,000 total yards in his 4 years there, 87 total touchdowns, and only 28 interceptions. And again, he started all 4 years and played really solid all those 4 years. So out of the top 5 QBs, I think he's the most well-polished of them all.
Yeah, and Ridder's certainly a quarterback that's had to deal with 2 different head coaches there in his time at Cincinnati as well, Tommy Tuberville, and then ends up going to Luke Fickell. So certainly an interesting guy that you think is going to be the first quarterback off the board. Spencer, Caleb, who's your first quarterback off the board and where?
Well, I'm not going to disagree with Spencer in terms of Desmond Ridder is a good candidate. I mean, he's one of the most solid overall in this upcoming draft. But I have to give the edge to Kenny Pickett here. He was ranked in the top 5 in the FBS for both catchable percentage and on target percentage. He can place the ball really well. He's really good at rolling to his right and to his left, but better to his right. But the thing is, I think Kenny Pickett is just slightly better, and 23 years old, I think he's ready, and I think the Carolina Panthers are going to take him.
And then there's that obvious connection there with Kenny Pickett, the Carolina Panthers. Matt Rule recruited him to go to Temple out of high school, but obviously Pickett ended up going to Pitt. And Austin, who's your top quarterback and why?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it. Rule being now with the Carolina Panthers, and Carolina really being that first of the needy teams for a quarterback. Carolina at 6, Atlanta at 8, and you can look at Seattle at 9 as the teams in the top 10 that could target QBs. Kenny Pickett is the guy for me. I really like that connection with Matt Rule at Carolina. I like what Pickett brought to the table. He was a Heisman finalist for a reason. He had a fantastic season. Now, we did have the Biletnikoff Award winner as wide receiver, and also a veteran offensive line that also did help him at his disposal. But a fantastic season for Kenny Pickett. Took down Clemson. The ACC was down, but overall, his improvement, and I think part of this is because of the communication that he's had with Peyton Manning in the offseason before coming into the 2021 college football season, propelled him to the top of the leaderboard where, let's be honest, guys, he would have been a 4th or 5th round pick if he would have came out in last year's draft. Taking advantage of the extra year has really solidified him as a potential top 10 pick.
Oh, that extra year, definitely, I totally agree with you, solidified it.
Yeah, Peyton Manning, kind of the guy responsible for getting Kenny Pickett back to Pitt. And talking a little bit more about Kenny Pickett, because everybody loves talking about his hand size. Spencer, let's hear from you here. What are your thoughts on Kenny Pickett?
Well, I know I'm going to get some backlash for this, guys, but I'm going to have to go against what you guys said. I think he's going to be a bust. I just don't see the potential in him. He had a great year last year, don't get me wrong, and it was his extra year, but those 4 previous years, there wasn't a lot of talent. It wasn't polished. He wasn't really there. It was almost like he wasn't trying. I mean, like I said, he had a great year this year, but his past 4 years, he only had 38 total touchdowns through 2018, 2019, 2020. He had more touchdowns just this year alone. So, I mean, Joe Burrow only had 1 good year in college, and he's turned out to be a pretty special quarterback, but I just don't see the same thing being replicated for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and talking a little bit more about Joe Burrow and that connection between Kenny Pickett. Joe Burrow also came into the draft with smaller hands as well, 9-inch hands. Michael Vick, another quarterback with smaller hands, 8.5-inch hand size. So people love to talk about that when it comes to Kenny Pickett and just that 1 good year that he ended up having where he's a Heisman Trophy finalist. Austin, I'm going to throw it to you here. For one of these young quarterbacks, where do you think the best location will be for one of them to go?
Well, I want to first say that Pickett's hands, I would not be one bit concerned if I was a team that plays in cold weather. He played at Pitt, he played at Heinz Field for all these years. I'm not one bit concerned about that. But fit is definitely something that you worry about with a young quarterback. We've seen this now already with Zach Wilson with the Jets. Maybe that'll work out. Who knows? Battled some injuries. But where you're situated is ultimately going to determine how good of a player you are and what type of offensive scheme you're in. I think that Malik Willis would ultimately benefit from being with the Atlanta Falcons. I think that they kind of fit the style that he plays. They're looking to try to change it up from what they had with Matt Ryan for so many years. They have Kyle Pitts, a dynamic tight end. But that's really it. I think their offense is going to be to try to compete in the NFC. And let's be honest, the NFC is not as strong as the AFC anymore. It's kind of flipped the script in that regard. Willis, I'd say Atlanta. I think the Steelers and Carolina are the two best places for Kenny Pickett. But I also think Desmond Ridder, if he's put in a good situation, and there's only, I think, a couple where he'd be able to fit, maybe New Orleans or even Carolina. Carolina seems, with McCaffrey and also DJ Moore and having the offensive catalyst that Matt Rule is calling plays, should be a good spot, but still going up against Tom Brady, you never know for a couple years.
All right, quickly, everybody around the horn, who is your sleeper when it comes to quarterbacks in this draft? Spencer, you'll go first, and we'll wrap around.
I like Matt Corral, but I think other than him, Skylar Thompson from Kansas State has just changed my mind completely. I didn't when I first started watching Kansas, their football program, and him himself, he wasn't that good. As the year went on, 2,000 yards total, 12 touchdowns, and the fewest interceptions among the top-ranked quarterbacks. He only had 4. So my sleeper pick, without a doubt, is Skylar Thompson.
To me, I think my sleeper, that's a good option with Matt Corral, but I think Carson Strong is my sleeper. There's also been talk about him going to the Atlanta Falcons as well. He could be a pretty good fit there. He can fit passes into really tight windows and can place long balls very well too. His mobility is a little questionable, but I mean, if you can stay in the pocket and he's very comfortable there, I think he's going to be a sleeper for me.
I like Matt Corral a lot. I got Kenny Pickett 1 on my draft big board for quarterbacks, then Corral, and then Malik Willis. I think Corral is just being hated a little bit because he decided to play in the bowl game, unlike Kenny Pickett. And he got hurt. Exactly what Pickett tried to avoid. Corral found the situation that he's now in where he's not able to get those workouts in. And it's tough for Corral, but I think that if he was healthy and had a lot more eyes on him, then he'd be looked at as a high quarterback just like Willis and Pickett.
Well, thank you guys for kicking off the draft special with a great first segment. We gave quarterbacks a lot of love for this segment, but when we come back, we'll spread the love around the offense and break down some of the top offensive prospects in this draft. Heavy with defensive talent and depth, but there is certainly a lot of offensive talent and depth when it comes to this draft, and especially the wide receiving core as we look at the top receivers in this draft with Drake London, Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. A lot of talented receivers in this draft, and we've also seen a lot of talent receivers in the previous couple drafts too, with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, just to name a few. Joining me right here on the Plead Your Case draft special, Logan Lepiscopo, Alex Hughes, and Jesse Kane. Jesse, we'll start with you on this segment right here. Yourself being a defensive back at Waynesburg University, which one of these receivers wouldn't want to be the guy that you would have to cover?
Well, quite frankly, Riley, all of them. Their talent is just out of this world. And, I mean, Garrett Wilson, he's sitting number 7 right now on the prospect board. He's definitely the favorite, I feel like, of all the receivers. But my favorite right now is, his classmate, Chris Olave at Ohio State. Personally, as a Saints fan, I'm hoping that we'll, take the chance and pick him up. But 6 foot, 187. He doesn't quite have all the other athletic ability that the others, but he's just a jack of all trades. I mean, he can go out there, do anything you want, run a quick flag route, run a drag, anything you want. Chris Olave's the man.
Alex, who's your favorite receiver in this draft?
I think just like Jesse said, I think Garrett Wilson is likely to go first. But for me, I have a different one that I like more than anyone. I actually like Treylon Burks out of Arkansas a lot. I think he reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel, and we've seen the kind of effect that he can have on an offense like he had in San Francisco, playing super well this year. And I think Treylon Burks is just a guy like Deebo Samuel. So I think whoever gets Treylon Burks, I think he could go in like the mid-20s. I think it's going to be an absolute steal for whichever team lands him.
Yeah, Burks seems to be one of those guys when you look at mock drafts. It's one of those boom or bust type of players here. Logan, what's your opinion on him, and then who's your favorite receiver in this draft?
I'm actually going to agree with Alex here. I love Treylon Burks as far as the versatility goes. The Deebo Samuel comparison I think is lovely, and I love Olave, I love Burks, but my favorite is Christian Watson from North Dakota State. A lot of people may not look at him because the college he went to, but he's 6'4", 208 pounds. He ran a 4.36 40. His measurements were just off the charts, and when you look at his play style, he's just a guy that's going to go up and get it. And a lot of teams are going to look at Watson as a deep threat, and I think he could potentially sneak into that end of the first round.
Yeah, Christian Watson, talking about him a little bit here, he's probably a little bit more of one of those prospects I think definitely shot up because of what he did at the Combine and stuff of that nature right there. Certainly had an impressive career at North Dakota State. The one thing that evaluators are keeping an eye on is that his concern over drops, because he dropped the ball 16 times at North Dakota State and then also has trouble tracking passes. So that's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on when it comes to Christian Watson as a wide receiver here. And keeping it kind of with that overrated talk here, Jesse, do you guys have any guys that you think are a little bit overrated in this draft?
I wouldn't say overrated. As you've seen in the past couple years, it's worth taking a good wide receiver in the first, second round early. If you see him and you want him, then take him. I actually think that Sky Moore is going to be my favorite from the sleeper aspect. I mean, 2-time first team MAC Maction, baby. First team, and freshman year, he broke so many records too. So sure, smaller school, smaller conference, maybe not as much competition, but he'll definitely pay out in the long run.
Pittsburgh native Sky Moore. Alex, who's your overrated receiver in this draft?
See, I know Logan said that he really likes Christian Watson, but for me, Christian Watson is my overrated receiver in the draft. I know a lot before, we really got into mock draft season. I saw him a lot in the third rounds, and then he's just kind of shot up to early first, or not early first, but into the first rounds. I just don't see it, like you mentioned before. He had a lot of dropping problems, and I really just think that he's overrated. I don't see him as a first-round talent. I think he's more better to go in the second or third round.
No, that's a fair argument. The drops are definitely a concern, and I'll give you that. He doesn't have the versatility like your guy, Treylon Burks, has. But as far as overrated guys go, I'm going to go with a Georgia guy, George Pickens. It's came out recently. A lot of people are worried about off-the-field issues, whether that be injury or just character-wise. It's a little concerning. I've seen things that he's going now projected into the late second round, maybe falls into the third round. So he's got injury concerns, tearing his ACL just a season ago. But he's got good hands. He's kind of on the edge with his football IQ, but I'm really not thinking George Pickens is going to be that guy in the NFL.
Yeah, a lot of people were concerned about that ACL tear that Pickens ended up having in that spring game. Going around here talking about our sleepers when it comes to receiver, Jesse, you dropped Sky Moore. Sky with 2 Ys is one of those guys in there as your sleeper. Who else do you think could be a sleeper when it comes to this draft?
Well, personally, Sky Moore is my favorite. I'm with Christian Watson, actually. I do think he'd be good, but maybe not quite as much as the sleeper when you get down into it. I've got Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. I think he could do a lot. We saw Cincinnati had a really great year, and I think that he just helped progress them for that playoff push.
All right, well, thank you guys for breaking down the offensive prospects when it comes to the NFL draft here. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're going to talk about the other drafts as well, so make sure that you stay tuned, as when we come back, we'll be breaking down the NBA draft and who our guys think will be going number 1. The NBA playoffs are still currently going on, but it's never too early to start looking towards the NBA draft, especially since we just crowned Kansas as the new national champion. Top prospects in this draft look to be Duke's Paolo Banchero, Auburn's Jabari Smith, and Gonzaga's Chet Holmgren. Spencer Fratteri, Carter Newcomb, and Tanner Saprosky join me here. And we'll start off with you first, Tanner. Who do you think is going to be the top pick?
I don't know if he will be the top pick, but I think he should be the top pick, and is the freshman out of Auburn in Jabari Smith. For me, my NBA comparison to him is Andrew Wiggins. He was a very explosive player in college, similar size, both extremely athletic guys. Smith and Banchero put up pretty similar numbers this season. I just think Smith is more athletic and has more room to grow, and I could see him becoming a very good professional basketball player someday.
And one of those things, too, is it all depends on who wins the lottery as well and what needs that those teams have. Carter, who do you think is going to be the top pick?
I think Chet Holmgren will be the top pick in the draft. I don't think he's the best player in the draft. I think he could possibly be one of my busts. We'll get more to that later. I just think he's 7 foot tall and he was 195 pounds. I mean, a gust of wind might blow this guy over. So I just don't see how he could last in the NBA. He could definitely stretch the floor, and he could definitely, do a lot of things that some of these guys can't. But I just think at his size, I don't think it's going to work very well in the NBA.
Spencer, who is going to be your top pick? Are you going to go Banchero, or are you going to go somebody else?
Yeah, I think Carter nailed it right on the money. I have Jabari Smith going number 1 overall, and I actually had his comparison as Andrew Wiggins as well. Andrew Wiggins has had a interesting NBA career, to say the least, but I think Jabari Smith and Banchero are similar players, but I think Smith is the more well-polished player. He averaged 17 and 7 throughout the March Madness tournament. I know the March Madness tournament doesn't determine everything, but playing well during that tournament, ultimately not being able to get past Miami. But Smith overall, I think, is the most well-developed player of the draft.
So Carter already mentioned right here that Holmgren is going to be his biggest bust in this draft. Carter, just elaborate on a little bit more on why you think that.
Like I said, I just think he's got a lot of skills, such as he can shoot and he can dribble for his size. That's one thing. He's quite athletic. The only problem is he just got no strength. And down low, some of these guys in the NBA, they're bigger guys. They're stronger. They've been in the league a while. They're going to shove him around a little bit. And I think like between Banchero and Smith, I think they're just so much better in terms of their complete game. But I just think with a guy like Chet Holmgren, it's just his size, man. If he weighed maybe even 230 pounds, I think he could be, I would say for sure, number one, maybe best player in the draft, but I just think he's going to get pushed around.
Maybe you should get on Zion Williamson's diet. Maybe that'll help him out a little bit here. Tanner, do you agree with Carter on Holmgren, or do you think somebody else?
I agree. I think Chet's a really good player. Like Carter was mentioning, he can stretch the floor, he can dribble, he can shoot a three. His shot blocking ability is absolutely ridiculous, but most of his blocks are either people coming from the other side of the rim and trying some sort of reverse layup, or in transition. If he's getting backed down by a certified NBA center, I just don't see him being able to hold his ground to be in the right position to make a block. He might pick up a lot of fouls in his first year. So I think for him it's just going to be a matter of time. For me, one of my busts I think is going to be Ty Washington out of Kentucky. I mean, he's not really a big name player in this draft. On this list, he's the 15th ranked prospect. I just think he's a little small too and just not as creative and good on offense to make it in the NBA. So I'm just going to go with Washington for this one, and we're just going to have to wait and see on Chet.
Now, Spencer, we've saw a lot of guys overlooked over the past couple years that went on to make a big impact in the NBA, namely Tyrese Maxey and Jordan Poole, guys who were taken a little bit later in the first round. Who's one of those guys that you think deserves a little bit more respect than they're getting right now?
Well, yeah, so Ousmane Dieng, he's projected to go 9th, and Riley, foreign players are taking over this league. Luka, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, those are just 4 of them that are pretty much almost the face of the NBA. I know LeBron's still in there, so no one's ever going to be the face over him until he's gone, and even if he's still there. But these foreign guys, they are well-developed. They start early. Luka Doncic was playing pro basketball at the age of 16. And I think just Ousmane Dieng is so polished. He's already played pro basketball. He's played against professionals that maybe not be NBA professionals, but he's played against guys who have made money off the game of basketball. So I think my sleeper pick, without a doubt, is Ousmane Dieng.
Well, thank you guys for another great segment right here as we just discussed the NBA draft on Plead Your Case's live draft special. And when we return, we'll head over to the Diamond to break down the MLB draft.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies like Frozen, or TV shows like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing though. Take a trip to the 2nd floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
Last year, we saw the Pittsburgh Pirates select Louisville catcher Henry Davis first overall, Vanderbilt pitcher Jack Leiter go to the Texas Rangers, and then Kumar Rockers slide into New York Mets, and his entire situation that led to him not getting signed due to a medical evaluation. Austin Bechtold, Jared Weicker, and Jeremiah Miller have popped into the batter's box to break down the MLB draft. And as much as I would love to talk about Kumar Rocker's situation from last year with the Mets, everybody, let's just start at the top of this year's draft and talk about the 2 prospects that are being talked about most, and Elijah Green and Drew Jones. Both of those guys have family ties to the MLB, or at least professional ties. Drew Jones has the professional tie to the MLB as his father was in the league for 17 years. And then we have Green's tie, which his father played tight end for the Baltimore Ravens. Austin, which prospect gets you more excited, Jones or Green?
Honestly, Riley, Green, because I've heard so much more about Elijah Green and have been following him more for the last couple of years than Drew Jones. Now, Jones obviously has the background of Andrew Jones and just the MLB bloodlines that we start to see take over. Maybe the Toronto Blue Jays will pick him. It seems like Vi Guerrero, Bo Bichette, and all kind of other players. A lot of sons on the Toronto Blue Jays, but I don't think he's going to slide that far. I'm excited for Green because he's got a lot of power from the right side of the plate. He's a kid from IMG Academy that has just been having 5-tool potential for the last couple of years. We've heard about his name. Now for the Pirates, specifically at 4th overall, I don't know if he's going to be there, but Cole Young, a shortstop from North Allegheny, situated 18th overall in MLB Pipeline's top draft rankings, might be an option for the Pirates if he continues to climb. But if I was Ben Cherington, if Elijah Green's there, I'd take him.
Jeremiah, who's your top pick in this draft?
I flip a coin for Jones and Green. I really don't have a favorite. I think depending on where you want, if you want a sustainable hitter who's going to hit for average, I think you take Jones. He has sneaky power just like his old man did. His old man's probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame in a couple years from now. But Elijah Green, yeah, he's got power. I mean, he's probably going to be a 30, 40 home run guy when he gets to the leagues. His dad had a lot of power. As you mentioned, Riley, tight end for the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers, former first-round pick out of Liberty. So, yeah, it just depends what you're looking at. Like I said, flip the coin. One's going to be an average guy that's going to hit over 300. The other's going to be a 30, 40 home run hitter. I think they're both going to be great in the MLB, though.
All right, Jared, pick your side of the coin here.
Well, I'm going to break the tie, and I'm going to go with Drew Jones. I would be a 5-tool player like him. I think he's the safest option. But I will also say Tamar Johnson also, he might be the best pure hitter in this entire draft class. And if there's a team that wants a lot of, just hits, home runs, and they really need someone to bolster their lineup, especially now with the DH in both leagues, I think Tamar Johnson could slide up there. But for the Pirates, call me a homer, I don't care. Jacob Berry, LSU, skilled hitter, hit 17 home runs for Arizona last year, hitting .352. He's just dynamic. He can play third base, the outfield, anywhere. And for a team like the Pirates, who they need to just get players who are very versatile and best available to fit any role, I think that's the guy the Pirates should look at.
All right, so we just talked about hitters. Let's move over to the pitching side and on the hill here. Austin, who's your top pitcher in this draft?
I like Dylan Lesko, but as we talked about before, Riley, he's had Tommy John surgery, so he's going to be somebody that just continues to fall. There's not a lot of pitchers that are situated. MLB Pipeline is one of the main resources, along with Baseball America, that I go to check out different types of prospects. And they have the first 4 players as all high school bats: Drew Jones, Elijah Green, Tamar Johnson, and also Jackson Holliday. Let's Go is the first that you get to at number 9. So right now, if you're just talking specifically about the Pirates, I think that you'd have to talk just overall position players. But Brock Porter, another high school arm, is someone that I would look at. If you're talking about the college ranks for pitchers, though, I like just a couple of different guys. Carson Wisenhunt from Eastern Carolina is a lefty. The Pirates need left-handed pitchers, but don't know if they're going to make the jump, because for baseball, you take the best player available. You're not going to see these guys for a couple of years.
Exactly. And Jeremiah, talking a little bit more about the Pirates, who would you like to see them taking?
As far as pitching goes, the Pirates' farm system needs pitching. I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. Kumar Rocker, throw him in there. Honest to God, he was one of the best arms in all of college baseball last year. It was unfortunate he failed a physical when he got drafted, I believe, 6th overall to the New York Mets. Didn't work out with the Mets. He goes back to Vanderbilt. This guy's a stud. The Pirates need pitching. Why not take who everybody thought was one of the best pitching prospects ever until his teammate Jack Leiter lit up draft boards all last year? Take Kumar Rocker. Why not?
You might be able to get him in the 2nd round, too, because he's completely fallen off of the radar of
Just take him 4th overall. Get it over with.
All right, well, great stuff, guys. And just don't give us peanuts or Cracker Jacks, because we might sit around and keep talking about the MLB draft right here. But no worries, though, because I'll make sure that we will be returning to talking about the NFL draft next right here on Plead Your Cases live 1-hour draft special. Well, I mentioned at the beginning of the show that this draft is full of mysteries, and the one thing that hasn't been a mystery in this draft, though, is how stacked it is with defensive talent. Tyler Zeman joins us to break down the defensive side with Logan Lepiscopo and Carter Newcomb returning to the set. And Tyler, we'll start with you here. There's a lot of flip-flopping back and forth on who the top defensive prospect in this draft. A lot of people had Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon, Trayvon Walker from Georgia, and Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. Who do you think is the top prospect in this draft on the defensive side?
Well, I think Aiden Hutchinson will be the first defensive player off the draft board. I don't think he'll go first overall, though. I think if you look at how the Jacksonville Jaguars have drafted the past 2 out of the 3 years, they've taken an edge guy or a linebacker that can kind of play both ways, and they're still kind of stuck. I think you have Trevor Lawrence, your new, your now sophomore quarterback. I think you got to protect him. I know they just signed a new guy to a bigger contract today, but it doesn't hurt to always have another big guy around. So I think they have to go with an offensive lineman first. But I think Aiden Hutchinson is still the best defensive prospect in this draft class.
Logan, let me throw it to you right here. What is all this love about Trayvon Walker? He's just been flying up draft boards as of late and hasn't really been too impressive at Georgia.
I think it's plain and simple the usual hype after pro days and, the combine and everything. Trayvon Walker, he's 6'5", 272 pounds. He ran a 4.51. I could name one person at 272 that runs a 4.51, and that's Trayvon Walker. He's a freak athlete, and I'm going to completely disagree with Tyler here. Trayvon Walker will not only be the first defensive player off the board, but he'll be the #1 overall pick in the draft this year.
Carter, who are some of the defensive prospects that you like?
Well, everyone talks about Aiden Hutchinson, but I don't think he's going to be the best defensive player in this draft. Trayvon Walker, I could see it. I think Kayvon Thibodeau might be the best defensive end prospect in this draft. I think his speed is one thing. He's very powerful as well. And as an Oregon fan, maybe a little bit biased here, but I got the chance to watch him, and a lot of people maybe didn't watch them as much throughout the season. I think he is a guy, at least at the edge category, I think could be the best player in the draft at that position.
All right, let's go around here, and I want you guys to give me your top prospect on this position. Let's start with corner. Logan, you go first.
So obviously there's a conversation, Stingley, Sauce Gardner. I think those are the two in the running for best corner in the class. But my favorite is Trent McDuffie from Washington. He's a kind of smaller guy. I believe he'll end up being a nickel corner in the league. He ran a 4.4 4.40. And so I just think as the height difference that he has, where the other corners definitely up in the 6-foot range, McDuffie's going to be a nickel, and he's going to end up possibly being one of the best nickel corners in the league.
Carter?
I got to go Sauce Gardner. I mean, he's a tall corner. He can match up with just about anyone. He's fast. I think it's tough to look past Sauce Gardner.
Tyler?
Yeah, I have to agree with Carter. I think Gardner's the best cornerback in this draft. His massive wingspan, and I think that whenever he's able to locate the ball, he's going to make a play on it no matter what. So I think it's him because he's the all-around best cornerback.
And talking about the other defensive back position, because it's probably going to be Kyle Hamilton for all of you guys, correct? Tyler?
No, I think, to simply put it, I think Jalen Petrie is the most underrated player in this draft class. I think he is the best safety in this draft class, but he hasn't gotten a lot of the talk. And even if you don't think he's the best safety in this draft class, I think he's a very close second, and yet people still haven't noticed him. He can play anywhere across the top of the defense. We've seen him at Baylor be able to play the star position, what they call it, where he's played safety, linebacker. He's even lined up as a defensive end. So I think he's very versatile, and I think he's a matchup nightmare for NFL offenses because he can also play corner in the nickel formation.
Well, based off your guys' reactions, you don't agree.
Not at all. How do you say a guy that's 5'11", below 200 pounds is going to be a star player in the NFL? Offensive tackles are way bigger in college, way more physical. Jalen Petrie's 5'11". He's going to get beat over the top every time at safety. I give you maybe play in the box, more of a linebacker, but he's not coming off the edge. He does not have the size. He's not playing as a deep safety because he's simply not tall enough. Kyle Hamilton's the best safety in the draft, 6'4", 220. His speed didn't impress people, but his play in game is 10 times better than any other safety in this draft.
Carter, sorry to cut you off here. You're not going to have too much time, but one-word answer, is Kyle Hamilton the best safety in this class?
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. You settled the deal here between Logan and Tyler. And the one thing that is no question is that tough, Hard-nosed and defensive football has been a key identity of the Pittsburgh Steelers over the past 50 years. Will they pick up a key defensive player in round one, or will they take a guy like Liberty quarterback Malik Willis? Stay tuned to Plead Your Case's live draft special to hear what our analysts think.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies, like Frozen, or TV shows, like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing, though. Take a trip to the second floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
It was very predictable that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to take Alabama running back Najee Harris last year. One name that has been heavily connected to the Steelers this year is Liberty quarterback Malik Willis. Some of the names that are joining us to discuss the Steelers draft are Frank Cortazzo, Joe Vanzel, and the Dr. Caleb Yager. The Doc, got to go to you first here. Would Malik Willis be the right pick for the Steelers?
The best way I can describe Malik Willis is a roller coaster. He's really going to be good, or he's just going to be a complete bust. I mean, he's really scrappy. He can make plays off his feet, kind of Lamar Jackson-esque in my opinion. Keeps his eyes downfield. His pocket awareness is good, but he has trouble finding his target sometimes, and his first instinct is legs rather than arm. So that decision-making is a little questionable. Plus, he at Liberty, he didn't really have a great offensive line, and going to a team that doesn't have the best offensive line, that's still a work in progress as well. So it could go either way, but you know, if they're going to draft Willis, I think it's a risk that you can take, and I'll be okay. I'm not happy about it, but I'm okay with it, I would say.
Frank, would you like the Steelers to make that move?
Now, like you said before, Najee Harris was the name last year, and it seems like Malik Willis is the name this year. I don't feel that might be necessary. I think that maybe picking up a defensive tackle that would maybe drop, that would be pretty, you know, dream. It would be like a dream of mine to see another big defensive tackle come to the Steelers. I don't necessarily think that Malik Willis is the pick for the Steelers, though.
Who's that defensive tackle would you like to see? Is it Big Jordan Davis?
You know what? Like I said, it would be a dream if he came all the way down to the 20th pick. And I would like to see him, you know, come in. I know that some people are a little bit worried that he might be a two-down player, but the Steelers, their run defense is a little bit, you know, choppy nowadays. And I think that with the additive of Jordan Davis, he could really help out that interior D-line.
Yeah, and a little bit of an older defensive line as well. The run defense, as you mentioned, a little bit on the rougher side last season. Joe, we'll bring you in here. Who do you think the Steelers should go with in round one?
Definitely not Malik Willis. That's just been me. Since the beginning, I don't think the quarterback position should be a Steelers' need in the first round right now. I agree with Frank on the aspect of Jordan Davis, if in a sense that he does fall to the 20th spot. I don't see it happening
really, but I mean, in the dream scenario that he does, I feel like the Steelers do need that interior presence in Jordan Davis. You know, his time at Georgia has been absolutely outstanding. The biggest D tackle in the draft and runs like a gazelle. And it's insane to me, and it's insane. But another pick that I would like to see the Steelers take at number 20, if he falls once again, Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa, one of the best linemen in the draft. And the Steelers definitely need to work on that offensive line.
But I did want to ask you guys, I mean, why don't you think the Steelers should take a quarterback? I mean, to be real, like, they just lost a quarterback. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, Caleb, I'm going to be straight up with you. We just picked one up in Mitchell Trubisky, which Mitchburg all the way for me. And it's just, I really have faith in number 10 leading this offense. You know, it's the Steeler guy. And, you know, we talked about Ben Roethlisberger being a Steeler guy in the sense of Steeler society, but Mitch Trubisky definitely fits that for me. So I don't say we take that risk.
Who would you rather have, Mason Rudolph or Malik Willis as a backup? That's my
You got me there. You got me there.
If I would have to say anything,
I think for one of the things is that the grass looks to be greener next year's draft when you have guys like Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. I'm sorry to cut you off, Frank.
Oh, no problem. Actually, I was thinking if we bring in a guy like Malik Willis, a quarterback, while we talk about our offensive line has a struggle, I mean, you're already looking at something bad to happen. I think Linderbaum, if we were able to get him, I mean, that would be a dream scenario, just like Jordan Davis. We did pick up Mason Cole and James Daniels in the free agency, and I don't know how that's going to look. But I think if we're going to go for a quarterback, we got to focus on the line as well. I think the line, there is some problems, but they're growing. That's what I think would be the best.
Well, guys, I would love to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers with you all day and their draft plans this entire show, but sadly we ran out of time to talk about them. And we'll shortly leave the gridiron to skate out on the ice to talk about the NHL's draft. You're watching Plead Your Case's live draft special.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Sidney Crosby, to name some of the accomplished #1 overall picks in the NHL draft. This year, it looks like Shane Hughes from Canada might be that guy to follow in their footsteps and be a star in this league here. Or Shane Wright, excuse me, not Shane Hughes. The price has been right so far for the team that will end up with that #1 overall pick, and it seems like Will Wilson, that Shane Wright might be the guy.
Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, he's 6'1", 187 pounds, 32 goals, 62 assists, 94 points. Kind of reminds me of Sidney Crosby a lot, assists a lot. Not a huge goal scorer, but, he passes the puck a lot as a team player. Something that is kind of rare in younger players, especially going into the NHL. They want to be the next superstar, but, scoring goals isn't always, the best way to be a superstar. You can, make insane passes and stuff like that. So, he's amazing. But another person I like is Pavel Mintyukov. He is a defenseman. He reminds me of Victor Hedman of Tampa Bay Lightning. Not as big, he's 5 inches shorter, but the way he skates and the way that he, plays defensively, he's one of the best. He came from the Russian league and is in the OHL now. And he's leading his team in points with 62, with 17 goals and 45 assists.
Darian, how do you like Wright as a prospect?
Shane Wright, as Jared and I talked before this, of course, I like him a lot. I think overall he has the most potential in this draft for compared to all the other prospects. But I don't think that he's that way and above everybody else. I think he's going to be great. But I think there is so much potential and so much offensive firepower in this draft that it's going to be a tight rookie race for the Calder next year with all these prospects. I think one of my favorite guys I see here is Juraj Slavkovsky. He had a tremendous season playing in the Olympics this past year for Finland. And he was tremendous. So he's definitely one of my top guys. But Shane Wright, he's going to be really good.
Yeah, and Slavkovsky, one of those guys that can play all around, left wing, right wing, center. He can play wherever you play him. So plug and play guy right there. Jared, who are some of your prospects that you have an eye on?
Yeah, well, Shane Wright definitely is head and shoulders above everybody here. I mean, the slogan this year was pain for Shane. Excuse me, say that 5 times fast. But a lot of the teams tanking for that. The Arizona Coyotes famously tearing down their team, trying to get him. But now a guy that they're looking at, because they're not likely to get the first overall pick, is definitely Slavkovsky. And this is, Darian, I'm full on board with you and agree with you on this. He's 6'4", a power forward, tons of hockey IQ. You can't teach that. He's a smart guy. And, he's not polished as other players like a Shane Wright. Shane Wright can easily be a top 6 player next year on a bad team. Slavkovsky will definitely take some years to develop, but he will get there. He's huge, and really for a league that's becoming smaller and faster, guys that can have that speed but be big and still pound other teams down, grind them down, are definitely needed.
And to talk about some other guys here, and I'll bring it back to you, Will, and Logan Cooley, Simon Nemec. What do you like about those guys as prospects and heading into this draft right here?
I mean, they're really good skaters. I really like how they, shoot. They're not like Shane Wright, like where they, they're fancy and stuff, but they can move the puck well, and they can, they can get the pucks to the net, and they're just like team players, which is something, once again, that I said, is something that young players need to learn fast to become better, better players overall in the league.
Darren, who's your sleeper in this draft if you had to go to one?
My sleeper in this draft, and I'm going to say this because I think he's going to fall into the middle of the draft, and I think my Pittsburgh Penguins will hopefully pick him up. But that is 100% Jimmy Snuggerud. Now, obviously, he's not a big-name guy, but he plays for Minnesota. He played for the University of Minnesota this past season. He is a great shooter. He has an unnatural ability just to be able to get a shot off from almost anywhere. And he reminds me a lot of Jake Gensel. And as we've seen, Pittsburgh has been great at getting nice, really good wingers. So I think that Jimmy Snuggerud is going to be a steal in the draft for any team that needs wingers right now.
Jared, Darian just gave his steal. Who's yours?
Well, the Penguins can have whoever that guy is, but Matthew Savoy absolutely could be a steal. He was ranked second to go possibly in the draft, but now all of a sudden a lot of boards have him around 8, 9, 10 going in there. He's small, only 5'9", 179 pounds, has some issues with skating, but he can definitely develop. He has a chance, if he does develop correctly, to be an elite center in the league like we once thought last year.
Well, thank you to Barry Melrose 1, 2, and 3 for breaking down the NHL draft. We'll be back to the NFL draft with our prediction segment. Don't go anywhere. Our analysts have some big predictions to give on Plead Your Case's live draft special.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Last year for this segment, we had some predictions that ended up being true, whether if it was Adam Morganti predicting that the Steelers would take Najee Harris or Logan Lepiscopo correctly predicting a trade between two teams. Since Logan had a perfect prediction, we had to bring him back for our prediction segment right here on Plead Your Case's live draft special. He's joined alongside by Austin Bechtold and Jeremiah Miller. And guys, quickly, let's go around and give who you guys think is going to go number one. Austin, you go first.
I think Aiden Hutchinson, Michigan. I think he's just the best player in the draft overall. He had a fantastic season rushing the quarterback. And the three things that you need are your quarterback, someone to go get the quarterback, and someone to protect the quarterback. And I think that's what happens for Jacksonville.
I'm going to go differently. I'm going to go with Trayvon Walker. I think he's the most athletic defensive end in this year's draft. And his combine impressed me. His play wasn't the greatest, but at least he's got longer arms than Aiden Hutchinson, so he'll be able to actually pass rush.
You even have the Georgia colors on, too, which makes it work perfectly. Jeremiah?
Yeah, I'm going to go Aiden Hutchinson, but it's not because I think Hutchinson's the best player. In fact, we'll get a little more in-depth on my opinion on Hutchinson later on. I just think that the Jacksonville Jaguars are just going to buy too much into the hype that Aiden Hutchinson brings. But I'm still going to have him go first, but I think the Jaguars are going to regret it. Not that they're a great franchise anyway.
Well, let's dive into it, Jeremiah, real quick. Why do you think it would be a mistake for the Jaguars to take Hutchinson?
So there's three positions you look at that can really change a franchise around in the NFL. A quarterback, a left tackle, and an edge rusher. But all three of those guys have to have an it factor. I just don't see it in Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson reminds me of Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney went first overall because he had a
one hit.
Go all over Vine. That's how dated it is. He got on Vine. He had a hit, knocked the helmet off. Everybody, woo, let's draft Clowney. No, Aiden Hutchinson had one big game against Ohio State. Granted, it is the Ohio State. Who cares? All right? Everyone's buying in the hype. I think him and Kayvon Thibodeau, both very overrated edge rushers. I actually think Aiden Hutchinson's teammate, Ojabo, is better than him. Unfortunately, Ojabo tore his Achilles in the pro day at Michigan, so it's unfortunate there. But yeah, Hutchinson doesn't have that it factor. I think he's going to be, at best, an average edge rusher.
And we should certainly see Ojabo return by the regular season, at least at some point. We saw Cam Akers last year suffer that same injury, be able to come back for the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So, Austin, we'll go to you real quick since you have the Steelers tie on right now. You think it would be a good move for the Steelers to take Malik Willis?
No. Don't take Malik Willis, and here's why. I think that Malik Willis and Lamar Jackson have very similar traits to quarterbacking. Lamar Jackson, run-first guy. Also been called a running back. Nah, he's a quarterback. But he acts like a running back all the time. Malik Willis in some of his biggest games, especially against Ole Miss, with 17 rushes for 71 yards and a touchdown, kind of showed the same type of things. Now, Lamar Jackson wins games, but I don't think he can win playoff games. We've seen this in the Steelers' own division. I think Malik Willis is a similar player. They don't have the he does not have the accuracy, and I think Lamar Jackson is pretty similar. So that's my comp. And look, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, I think you love Lamar Jackson. He does win you games. But you also have a great coach, you have a great running game, and a great defense. And the Steelers right now have some similar things that I think Mike Tomlin's trying to think about to have the same type of philosophy as the Ravens. But if I'm the Steelers, Malik Willis is not the guy. I don't think he's going to be accurate, and I think that could be a major detriment if the Steelers take him. There's a little bit of upside, but I don't think it's going to work.
The only knock I really have on Malik Willis, and Jay, I don't know if you'll agree or not, is the fact he played at Liberty. Other than the fact he did not really have much competition in college, I think he's got the athleticism like Lamar. I think he's got the arm strength to put the ball down the field. Yes, he, like Caleb Yager said earlier on the Steelers segment, thinks with his legs before his arm. That could be a big problem, but if you land in the right situation with the right offensive coordinator, I think Malik Willis could be the best quarterback in this class.
Well, and I think we started to see that a little bit with Lamar. Like he's a good player. I'm not trying to discredit Lamar Jackson at all. Malik Willis might be kind of similar, but the likes of Mahomes, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, guys that can move, but are pocket-first guys that can get it done and beat you at the line of scrimmage is, I think, why Kenny Pickett is more valuable.
I'm going to use my first charge timeout here. Jeremiah, get into the fix.
Yeah, thanks. Mel Kiper III taking up all the airtime here. No, but, I like Malik Willis, but I agree with everything you're saying. Actually, at my board, I have Willis the third best quarterback. I do have Kenny Pickett as my favorite quarterback. I will be honest. I'll talk a little bit about the Steelers and their situation. Any team looking for a quarterback, I think you're better off to wait for next year's quarterback class with Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Phil Jurkovec as well. But my second quarterback is where I'll get a lot of heat. That's Sam Howell from North Carolina. I really like Howell. I get it. He had a bad season. I can see you clinching right beside me, Logan. We'll get to you in a minute. But Sam Howell, the year before, stud, third-team All-American. He lost his whole backfield, which guys like Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, who both respectively had impressive rookie campaigns for the Jets and Broncos respectively, also lost his top 2 receivers in the draft. So he's basically playing with a whole new team this year. Still put up impressive numbers. I don't think a team should take a chance on him in the first round, not because of his talent, just because I think you can get him in the second round and still have a first-round talent quarterback.
So last year at this time, we had a little bit of that Aaron Rodgers trade buzz happening. This year, Deebo Samuel. Guys, quickly go around and ask, or at least answer, do you think that Deebo Samuel will be traded for this draft?
I don't. If he's going to go anywhere, it looks like it's the Jets, who are also rumored for Tyreek Hill. I don't think that that's something that Deebo Samuel would want to do, and I think that they work it out. We've already seen John Lynch say he doesn't want to trade him. I don't think he's moved.
Logan?
I don't think he's moved either. Like you said, Austin, it's the Jets that are the most likely to land him. The Jets are not a place anybody really wants to play. Hence
it's all
why
big for money.
Tyreek Hill went to Miami for a reason. He wants to win. Deebo Samuel wants to win. I think his best chance may be staying in San Francisco.
Jeremiah.
Blockbuster trade. Elijah Moore, Zach Wilson for Jimmy Garoppolo and Deebo Samuel. Calling it right now.
Wow.
What about Trey Lance?
Yeah, see you tomorrow night.
So will that little bit of that San Francisco and New York connection with Robert Saleh getting some former guys back. Logan, we'll go to you now. Since we just talked about trades a little bit and since you nailed one perfect last year, do you have any trades that you think are going to happen?
I have one, and I kept it concealed. Nobody could see it till this moment right here. There's been a lot of buzz with the Seahawks jumping the Falcons to number 7, trading with the Giants. But I picked the Giants to trade last year. We're changing it up this year. The Chargers are going to trade with the Minnesota Vikings. So they're going to move from the 17 to the 12. And here's why. They need offensive tackle. Yes, they got Rashawn Slater last year, so you can argue maybe it's not. But they want to jump the Ravens and the Saints and the Texans to perhaps grab Jordan Davis, one of the most athletic players in the class. So that trade can go 2 ways, Trevor Penning or Jordan Davis.
The NFL Draft will begin tomorrow night at 8 Eastern Standard Time. There is a lot of excitement for the NFL Draft, not only this year, but every year. Certainly an exciting time to see young men's childhood dreams come true and loyal fans rooting for their teams to make the right picks to try and hoist a Lombardi trophy. I want to give a special thank you to our producer, Brock Owens, for putting together this show, and Micah Leith for directing us every step of the way. A big shout out goes towards to everyone that assisted the show, whether on camera or behind the scenes, so we can produce this draft special on Plead Your Case. As for myself, I will be graduating on Sunday, so this will be my last show here on WCTV. And when we talk about the draft giving people a chance to follow their childhood dreams, that's exactly what Waynesburg University, the Department of Communication, and WCTV has done for me. I've grown up as a kid obsessed with the NFL and the reporting side of it, so it's very fitting that my last show for WCTV is one that discusses the NFL Draft. From everyone working the production to myself, Riley Holsinger, for one final time, good night, and we hope you enjoyed Plead Your Case's live draft special.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.